There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. I am home at my parents' farm in Saskatchewan. There's going to be farm noises, dogs and whatnot, so enjoy. Longtime viewers of my channel will be familiar with this phrase. I think I have that book somewhere in a box in Canada. So on this visit home to my parents' farm, I finally decided to look and hunt for those boxes. This story has a happy ending, but we couldn't find them. Nobody was quite sure. I left Edmonton in the year 2001 for Vancouver and shipped 10 huge boxes of books, unwanted books that I had never read or didn't think I'd ever want to read again, books that weren't that important to me, home to my parents' farm with my dad. Never saw them again, never wanted to find them again. But much more importantly, when I left Vancouver for Tokyo a decade ago, I shipped 8 or 10 boxes of my most treasured books, autographed books, and my favorite books and books that had some kind of either value or sentimental value, home with my parents to the farm. And I had never found them either. And it was those that I was most especially looking for. And there was about an hour yesterday where Mum was panicking that she had accidentally thrown them out. So, and my journals, 20 years worth of my diaries and journals. And the good news is, no, we found them. So I have them here, and I'm going to do an unboxing. Don't tell anyone. One video per box. I don't know if I actually will have the time. I'm on the farm today, going back to the city tomorrow, back to Tokyo on Friday. I don't know if I'll have time to get all these videos made, but here goes. This is box A. I was so delighted to see this again. My Father and Myself by J.R. Ackerley. It's the best gay memoir I've ever read. I did a graduate paper on it and some other gay male memoirs, and I'm dying to reread it. I have tons and tons of notes and underlining, but I read it and it's still got a perfect spine because that's just the way that I roll. You have to read this. It's just fantastic. I think this one's going back to Tokyo with me on this trip, so I'm going to put that aside. I'm not exactly sure why I bothered to save this. This is a Canadian travel book autographed by the author. The Last Heathen: Encounters with Ghosts and Ancestors in Melanesia by Charles Montgomery. It won some kind of a literary prize in Canada 10 or 15 years ago. I read it. I quite enjoyed it. I guess I just saved it because the author was really hot and it's signed. I don't think I'm ever going to read it again. This is one of many autographed works by Mavis Gallant, Home Truths, Selected Canadian Stories. And I have told this story many times, but there it is. To Sean Mooney, Mavis Gallant. She did a reading at Harbourfront in Toronto in the early 1990s, and I was first in line for the autograph, and she was very warm and friendly. And as she was signing, all my books, the books that I brought were all beat up second-used books like this, most of them. She didn't have any problem signing and personally inscribing all of them, but as she was sort of getting to book number 8, she said, I think I'm going to remember your name forever or something. And I said, oh, well, maybe you can use it as a character name in one of your stories. And her mood completely changed, and she looked at me and she said, I don't need any help with that. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. Oops. Anyway, it was a moment. So this is one. Autographed copy of Andrew Holleran's novel, Nights in Aruba, which I have never read. I have a large collection of autographed books by Carol Shields. This is a fairly conventional woman. I met her at several readings in the early 1990s. She died in maybe the mid-1990s, late 1990s. And I have to say that I've read and reread some of her work in recent years, and it doesn't speak to me at all. But I considered her to be one of my favorite writers at that time. I did some academic research and certainly had a deep personal interest in gay male literature, historical and otherwise, and so I did keep some of the more scholarly books about that, thinking that I might do more work on that in the future. So this is Gay Fiction's Wild to Stonewall by Claude J. Summers. I probably used it for certain essays over the years, but I decided to keep it. So it's in a box here in Canada. My one autographed book by Salman Rushdie, Shalimar the Clown. I hear it's awful. Anybody hear any different? Margaret Atwood, Selected Poems, signed by herself. She did an AIDS benefit at the Gay Community Centre in Toronto in about 1993, I think. Stevie Cameron, Blue Trust. The author, the lawyer, his wife, and her money. It's a true story, and the law firm that I worked for was the setting for part of this very dramatic, intriguing story. I worked there about a year after this story happened. I think people heard me talk about this book. This was the Scandal book. It was for the... I'll put a link because I'm not going to go through the story now, but it was the tag that Britta did for Jacqueline of 6 Minutes for Me when she got past the bar exam, and I talked about this for the legal thriller thing, so you can look that up, but this is my copy, not autographed. This was one of my favorite gay novels back in the day. I don't know how I'd feel about it if I reread it today. A Matter of Life and Sex by Oscar Moore. I have probably a dozen times said that when I was 11 years old, I keep changing the age because I can't remember, 9 years old, 11 years old, certainly younger than 14. I always say I read a 900-page biography of Queen Victoria. Well, I've got it right here, and it's actually 600 pages, so I lied. And here's my beat-up copy of Queen Victoria, Born to Succeed by Elizabeth Longford. This book turned me into a queen, boys and girls. I don't actually know why I kept this. This is a book of Canadian gay fiction that I didn't even remember owning. Platonic Love, 3 Tales of Language and Desire by Scott Watson. Published in Vancouver in 1981. I know I never read it. I should. Especially now, a few weeks later, I have checked Goodreads and it has a 4-star rating. Oh my goodness. I also have a fairly complete collection of autographed books by the gay American poet Mark Doty. This is memoir or something. I never read it. Still Life with Oysters and Lemon. I met him at several gay writers' conferences over the years. This one I may consider taking back to Tokyo with me. It's J.R. Ackerley's, I'm not sure if he novelized it or if it's a memoir called My Dog Tulip. I'm not interested in pets particularly, but I love his writing, so I'll consider taking that back. Nice NYRB Books edition. This also was one of my favorite novels back in the day, and I think I'm going to take it back. The Irreversible Decline of Eddie Socket by John Weir. And I just talked about this book on my N is for Novella alphabet soup tag. So I found my copy of The Cry of Winnie Mandela by Njabella Ndebele. So I'm taking this one back to finally read. South African novel, obviously, maybe. This is a beat-up copy of a seminal, I use the term advisedly, seminal work of gay literature, published in 1978, I believe, Larry Kramer's Faggots, and I have this signed by the author. Actually, this has sentimental value to me because this was given to me by a young gay man from Saskatoon who died of AIDS in the late 1980s. I was his volunteer buddy through the AIDS agency, and he gave me this book. And then, many years later, I got it signed by Larry Kramer. Afterwards, Real Sex from Gay Men's Diaries. After I left Toronto, Joan Didion came to Toronto, and I got my cousins who lived there to go to her reading, and I mailed them my books, and they got them signed and mailed them back. So here is The White Album by Joan Didion. Oh, this one wasn't signed, but I do have some signed. I believe this is a novel, The Last Thing He Wanted, that I got signed. Oh, I want to take this back. I got a beat-up old Penguin copy in Tokyo, but this is a lovely paperback. We Think the World of You by J.R. Ackerley. I read it for Booktubeathon in 2018. Loved it. A Queer Geography, Journeys Towards a Sexual Self by Frank Browning. I'd never read this, but his first book, The Culture of Desire, I presume is in one of these boxes, had quite a formative influence on me back in the day. Boys Like Us by the Arkansas Canadian gay writer Peter McGee. I had a date with him back in the late 1980s, before this book was published, and then sadly he died before it was published. Another one of my favorite gay novels, Ready to Catch Him Should He Fall by Neil Bartlett. Another novel by Carol Shields, Happenstance. With every good wishes, Carol Shields. This also was a really great gay novel that I loved in the 90s, Traitor to the Race by Derek Scott. I wonder what I would think of it today. Maybe I wouldn't like it anymore. I read it in 1997. It was published in 1995, and it is about gay African-American men. This is a book of gay studies theory, perhaps, from Denmark. When Men Meet, Homosexuality and Modernity by Henning Beck. I've never read it. I guess I saved it because I thought someday I might. Has anybody out there read it? And this is one of my treasures that I actually forgot I owned. I have talked before on my channel about how much of a Nelson Mandela groupie I am. And here is a book that I forgot I had that it has a special added thing about it. So here is a regular size book, just so you know how big this is. This is a coffee table book. Mandela, the Authorized Portrait. I don't even know if it has an author. I think it's mostly photographs. No, it has various contributors, I guess. And the two editorial consultants are big names in the African National Congress movement, liberation movement, Mac Maharaj and Ahmed Kathrada. And Mac Maharaj has autographed this, and I had no memory of owning this book or owning one that was autographed by another luminary of the anti-apartheid movement. So that was just like a Christmas present all over again to find, because I didn't remember. All right, that's box A. Thanks for watching.